Hey, let's talk about the STAAR Reading TEKS from the 2025 STAAR exam. It is 9:30 in the evening, so I'm going to try to go over this very quickly because I'm exhausted and I'd like to get to bed. But I'm seeing some really interesting things here. And if you want to know where I got my data, I will link that in the video description below. It is something that TEA makes available to us, but it's not always easy to find. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. And the first TEKS we're going to look at are TEKS 2A and 2B. And these are our vocabulary TEKS. Now, 2A is using print or digital resources to understand a word. And this almost always looks like a dictionary entry with 4 different definitions. And students need to look at a word in context and then understand which dictionary definition matches the word in context. 2B is looking at denotation or connotation of a word in a sentence. If you want to know more about what these questions look like, I will make another video about that and link it in the video description as well. If you're visual like me and you kind of want to see what they look like, I'll take care of you there. But for now, I just kind of wanted to look over the data to see if there are any trends or certain TEKS that stick out. And so, yeah, this one definitely sticks out because, we can pretty much bank on vocabulary being asked on the STAAR. And with 3 questions of 3 of these questions being vocabulary, right? Um, 2A, 2B, 2B for English 1, and 2A, 2A, 2B for English 2, that's already 10% of the reading exam is on the vocabulary. So do we want to hit this throughout the school year? Yes, absolutely. And I feel like this is a pretty easy one to integrate in as well. I was really surprised taking a look over here at the English one. 4F came up 3 times on the English one. It only came up once on the English 2. But 4F is making inferences, and I do feel like historically that has been a TEK that has been consistently assessed by TEA on this exam. And I would continue to hit that with my students as well. All right, moving on to 4H. There are 4 questions with TEKS 4H on English 1 and English 2. These are the crossover questions. They are on the exam every year, and they have been, I believe, since STAAR came out in 2013. I don't know. It's been so long. um, and some years this has been only 3 questions. Some years this has been as many as 5. This year it was 4. In 2024 it was also 4. So knowing that, it's going to be roughly 13% of the reading score. Now, TEKS 4F is when students have to look at 2 different texts, usually fiction and nonfiction. They have to find ways they are similar and ways that they are different. This is almost always looking at maybe the author's purpose, the characters and their motivation, the setting, the conflict, or the tone of maybe dialogue and words. Um, since this is going to be on the test, this is the one TEK we know is going to be on the test multiple times, again, at least 4 times, and is 13% of the reading exam. This is a TEK that I try to hit in every unit with my students. And even though this TEK is looking at the similarities and the differences between texts of 2 different genres, I find that the skill can be practiced pretty easily even within the same genre, right? So if we were doing drama, we might look at how the characters' motivations are similar or different. We might look at how the tone of 2 different quotations, again, are similar or different. Going over to our unit on short stories, I might look at how the settings, are different. Maybe one creates conflict where one does not. I might look at the author's message. So the topic might be similar, but the author's message about those topics might be different in both of those. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though this TEK is looking at, again, the similarities and the differences between two different genres. I think you can easily practice this skill within a singular genre to give your students as much practice throughout the year as possible. All right, so the next TEK we're going to look at is 5C. This is using text evidence to support your answer. I feel like this one is also, it was twice on the English one, twice on the English two, so 6% of the reading score. And again, I feel like this one has been pretty consistent from TEA as well. All right, now in here you see all of these that were only asked once, all of these here in white. The 7D, oh, not that one. The 7EI, EII, EII, those questions are analyzing argumentative texts. And so we see that we have three questions about argumentative texts, but they're also hitting three different skills within that. I don't have that broken down yet, but I do know like they did ask about thesis. They also asked last year, I believe on the English 2 about what was it? Antithesis. I saw also words like counter argument, um, sweeping generalization was also on one of those. And so look, if you're teaching regular English students who can handle a well developed like rhetorical analysis unit, then by all means hit those things. But if you're like me teaching students who are either EEBs here in Texas or they are, struggling with reading, behind in whatever, right? Our students who struggle, then I wouldn't worry so much about these TEKs. And here's why. Again, they're only on here 3 times. When we go down to the TEKs that are generally associated with short stories, wow, look at this. So TEKs 8A all the way to 8G, assessed 7 times on the English 1 side and assessed 8 times on the English 2 side. So I feel like getting your students very comfortable answering TEKs like these is probably going to be a better strategy for you in the long run. All right, so let's look at 8A. It was asked once on English 1, twice on English 2. That's analyzing the author's purpose, audience, or message. I think TEA used to lean more towards author's message, but this year on English 1 and English 2, I saw questions where they were asking more about the audience. So that was kind of new, and maybe that's something that's coming up more now. 8B is looking at text structure, and I do not believe these came up last year in 2024. I'd have to double check. But this is also kind of new where they asked it twice on English 1 and twice on English 2. And maybe last year, if they asked it, they might have only asked it like once on one or the other. So text structure, they asked, I believe, on both of them what the author's purpose was for using a chronological order. So making sure your students just know what chronological means could be beneficial for that. I will say for the 8B, like I said, since it was twice on the English 1 and twice on the English 2, that's 6% of the test, which again surprised me because text structure hasn't come up that often in the past. All right, jumping to 8D, I feel like this is one that, again, we have seen in the past and we continue to see is analyzing the author's use of language. We're especially going to see this if STAAR chooses to put a piece of poetry. And they did do that this year or last year, I should say, for English 2, but there was not a poem for English 1. So 8D asked twice on English 1, asked once on English 2. So again, pretty likely that one again will be asked and asked multiple times. And then last but not least, I want to just bring up 8F, not asked at all on the English 1, but asked twice on the English 2. And that kind of surprised me. 8F is tone and mood. And I feel like in the past, that has been a pretty common question for our English 1 students. I feel like tone and mood is a pretty easy question to answer as long as students use the online dictionary and can kind of understand whether the word is, positive or negative. They can usually get it down to a 50-50 guess on those. And so to see that easier type of question show up for the E2 and not the E1 was interesting to me. I'll also note that I thought it was interesting that English one had argumentatives. So uh, I will say that the star was a lot more fair as far as what it gave the students. I feel like in the past, honestly, the English one has been harder than the English two. And this year it looks like it was a little bit more fair in that English one had an argumentative piece, and so did English two. Um, I think the only thing that was really different was English 2 had poetry and English 1 did not. We did not see drama on the English 1 or the English 2. Now, maybe that showed up on the summer retest, or maybe it'll show up here in December. Who knows? But yeah, that's just a very quick dive into the reading teaks, and these are only the reading teaks for the star. Remember, this part of the star is only 25% of the entire score. So take that what you will. But if you're strapped for time, the teaks that I would really hit are 2A and 2B, 4F, 4H. Um, I would do 5C, and then I would do a couple from the eights, probably 8A. I would say 8A, 8B for sure, and maybe even 8F. So if you hate looking up the question stems on TEA's website through the practiced exams, much like I do, I actually do have the question stems in a Google Doc, so you can copy and paste them into your own lesson plans. They are editable, they are organized by test and by genre. So if you're interested in that too, that is also linked in below. If you have any questions, if you have any insights or anything that you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments, and good luck to you and your testers.